Good morning, everyone. Good Sunday morning to you. We are very pleased to be here this morning with yet another live study, a morning of reflections. And we have a special guest with us today. Sandra Benetti is going to be talking to us about divine justice. And we are very happy to have her join us on this very sunny and beautiful morning. If you are following us, feel free to say hello. Good morning, Vivi. Sandra Benetti is already connected. She might be looking at the comments, so if you want to participate and engage, feel free to do so. Before we do our opening prayer and we pass on the word to our special guest, we are going to invite you to follow along as I read a chapter from the book Living Spring. Living Spring is a book that was psychographed, channeled by Francisco Cândido Xavier by the Spirit Emmanuel, and it is lesson number 38, If We Only Knew. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Jesus, this is found in Luke chapter 23, verse 34. If murderers knew beforehand how much pain life is going to charge them in order to readjust their destiny, they would prefer not to even have arms at all in order to withhold the deadly blow. If the famers could eliminate the crust of darkness that maddens their vision and foresee the suffering that awaits them as they settle accounts with the truth, they would paralyze their vocal cords or lay down their pen rather than wrongly accuse someone. If deserters of the good could see the dangerous traps that the darkness sets to steal their joy of living, they would gladly wear the sanctifying shackles of the heaviest responsibilities. If ingrates could see the bile of bitterness that will invade their heart later on, they would never perpetrate the crime of indifference. If selfish persons could perceive the infernal loneliness that is awaiting for them, they would never depart from the tireless practice of fraternity and cooperation. If gluttons could see the damage they're causing their body, thus hastening their death, they would render unwavering worship to frugality and harmony. If we knew how terrible the result of disrespecting the divine laws will be, we would never depart from the upright road. So forgive those who hurt you or slander you. Those who give in to the disturbing suggestions of evil do not know what they're doing. This text is pretty profound, and we find in the Spiritist literature enough information that in reality is equipping us as we journey through our life here on earth in this present reincarnation. If We Only Knew is the title of the message. And today, with this beautiful collection of books that we have contained first and foremost in Allan Kardec's work, we find that we are truly, truly blessed for having the information and being able to say eventually that we did know. And when the day comes, hopefully, we will be able to say we were able to utilize the light while we had it, so that we would not fall into darkness. On this note, one of the books that we invite all of the listeners to read is Divine Heaven and Hell. And with the message of divine justice today that Sandra Benetti is going to be bringing us, certainly we are going to have a lot of reflections to do. And it is going to empower us, encourage us, uplift us, and also bring us information to warn us, so that later on we cannot say, I did not know. On this note, good morning, Monica, Miriam, Louise, good morning, Jessica. I invite you to do our opening prayer with us by opening our hearts, keeping our eyes closed if we so wish, but saying, Dear Father, thank you so much for this opportunity that we are having today. The blessings that we find when we are truly, truly aware that they are found everywhere. starting with opening our eyes this morning upon waking up, being able to hear, to listen, to walk, being able to have this blessed illuminated information at our disposal, to be able to use them and grow and evolve and progress. We are thankful even for the obstacles that come our way, for we know that overcoming them, we are only building up the strength to soar and ascend higher and higher. We are grateful for our speaker this morning, Sandra Benetti, who took her time to bring us a reflection contained in the Spiritist philosophy in this beautiful body of knowledge in order to assist us in this morning of reflections. We ask that you bless her efforts, and that you open our minds and hearts to be able to assimilate each word and find how we can best apply them in our day-to-day life. Bless those that are listening right now in their own homes. At this time, allow us to open our meeting with an open heart and a smile on our faces. Thank you, and so be it. So our friend Sandra Benetti, who is joining us, she's here with us, a worker, a volunteer of the Cardassian Spiritist Society of Florida. If you don't know her, Sandra Benetti has also been an active worker with the Spiritist Federation of Florida, which is not an easy task, but she has done it beautifully in participating in promoting, disseminating Spiritism in Florida. And we are so, so happy to have you, Sandra, with us this morning. The word is all yours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. I just want to say hi to a few people that I follow in the chat. And that if you want to make comments, you're more than welcome. So good morning to all. Vivi, Jessica, Luis Barbosa, Miriam, Monica, Claudia, you're very welcome. I'm glad you are here today. So let's go to our PowerPoint here. So we are going to talk about divine justice. And we're going to focus a little bit on law of action and reaction. So it's going to be like a talk, and our objectives today on this very brief study is about to establish the relationship between free will and responsibility, and we're going to focus on the questions from the Spirit's book and the questions from 843 to 852. We're also going to explain the manifestations of the principle of action and reaction, or law of cause and effect, and we're going to explain fatality. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. I know Andrea mentioned the Heaven and Hell book, which is an amazing book by Allan Kardec, but today we're going to focus on the questions of the Spirit's book. But it's good to read all the codification of Allan Kardec. And just to know, the Spiritist Federation of Florida, the website www.spiritistfederation.us, we have there some examples. We can download all the books by Allan Kardec. And the Spirit Doctrine, the codification, the 5 books, you can download it. They are great translations, examples. It's free of charge. You also can buy the books, of course, but if you want to download and have on your computer to read it, because we're all digital now, and we have this opportunity, unique opportunity to download those books. So I invited you to check on that. So let's start it. So the question, we're going to talk about free will first. And the question Allan Kardec posted to the High Spirit: do humans act with free will? So let's check the answer first. That's what they said. Since they have freedom of thought, they have freedom of action. Without free will, human beings would be machines? Those are very questions. You see intelligent questions asked by Allan Kardec to the higher spirits, and they're very simple questions. You see at first very simple, but they're very important, and we might have those questions in our head, right? So every moral decision we make or action causes sooner or later a reaction. That's how it is. So therefore, good actions, those which favor others with whom apparently we did not have a direct, evident relationship, will come back to us as good reactions. Why you say people we don't have a direct interaction? Because it's easier to do good things to people we love, right? What about those people, they are strangers or people we don't like? Are we willing to do good actions towards them? So, by the same token, right? If you do commit like a bad or deleterious actions, not only to others, to ourselves, and especially the ones we have the intention to do it, the intentional ones, we will return to us in form of difficulties and a not so distant future. And so it is important that we understand and we oversee our free will and our responsibility, that the responsibility comes with. So we do not fear the consequences of our actions. So the more we know about the divine laws, and the main law that Jesus brought to us was the law of love, the more we know, the more we practice those laws, better will be, right, in the future, because this existence is briefly. It doesn't seem that way, but it's very briefly. And we have more existence to go through. So the better we start now doing changes that we have to do in our inner self, and those changes will reflect the way we treat other people. So the question 844, which is also about free will, do people enjoy free will from the moment of birth? That's a very interesting question, right? So look at the babe there. It's a very, very cute babe, but guess what? He's in spirit. He's an immortal spirit. He's a baby now, but, with previous existence. So we have to keep that in mind. Let's see what the higher spirits answered Allan Kardec. They have the freedom to act from the moment they have a will to act. So during the first phases of life, freedom is almost non-existence. It develops and changes its objectives as the faculties develop. Since the thoughts of children are in proportion to the needs of their age, they apply their free will to things that are necessary for them. So the free will from the moment of birth is directly related to the phases that the faculties will develop. So things we need to know. We have individual differences that we observe since children. We can observe those differences, right? So those differences can result from genetic, that they inherited from the parents, from the education they received, and also, most importantly, from the instinctual tendencies and innate ideas that the spirit brings at the rebirth. As we said at the beginning, it's a cute babe, but it's a spirit. It's an immortal spirit, because that's what we are. We are immortal spirits, and we bring that baggage with us from previous existence. So neurophysiological and biochemical transformation of the physical body follow the laws of genetics, molding the child's personality provided for in the planning reincarnation. Yes, my friends, we plan our incarnation. We are here, but in general terms, we plan what we're going to do with our life. We have the free will. You may not follow, but we plan. Most of us, those spirits, they are very they're very unconscious. They're very focused on the matter. They might get help or a lot of help from their mentors, the spirits that follow us. But general terms, and generally, we spirits, we plan our reincarnation. So education or culture factor provides conditions for intellectual moral development, and the clarification of the evolutionary achievements previously acquired by the spirit. So the instinct tendencies and innate ideas arise under the form of fragmentary memories of the achievements or failures that spirit brings to the reincarnation struggle. So we're not going to remember everything we did in previous incarnations, but we have some kind of feeling, we have sensations. And it is important to highlight that full memory of experiences in reincarnation is blocked. The full memory is blocked for our own good. It's actually a blessing. So that spirit, us, right, can better enjoy the benefits aimed to the reincarnation, to the new life. So far, so good. So let's continue on the question 845. So Kardec is not happy with the previous answer, so he asking more. He wants more clarification. So he asking, aren't the instinctive predispositions that individuals bring at birth an obstacle to exercise of their free will? You think about it. We have all these things we don't have the full memory of our previous existence, but we bring those instinctive predisposition, we bring innate ideas. And Kardec wants to know, is this is going to be an obstacle for this current existence? Okay, here the answer. Instinct predispositions arise from those of the spirit before its incarnation. So, depending on how much the spirit has evolved, these predispositions can incite the individual to reprehensible acts in which he or she will be aided by spirits who sympathizes with such dispositions. However, there is no irresistible incitement if the individual has the will to resist. Remember, where there is a will, there is a way. So as you see here, it all depends how much we've evolved. So it's just an example, because I have a friend, she was telling me, she's over 80, I don't know, I think she's 82 years old. And she was, remember, the time she worked in a hotel. She was a helper in a hotel. And she told many, many situations that she saw herself in a situation where she found money from the guests, jewelry. And what she did, she returned it. She took the right action. She returned all this to these rightful owners, right? But other people would act differently. So why she was putting so many, many situations over, like the time frame of, I think, 12 or 14 years of work, she's constantly get herself in a situation that she has to do the right thing. So we have a hypothesis, right? Whether she has been tested, meaning she had problem in previous existence with honesty regarding people's other people's things. So she was being tested, and also to serve an example, because in her work she was highly regarded as being honest worker, because others they weren't. So she was very, so you see all these situations that sometimes we see ourselves, we need to remind, why am I going through this now? What life is telling me to do, right? So if she hasn't been, let's see, solve this problem on her, she might, did the wrong thing, but she didn't, because she somehow evolved from that problem on. She solved that problem on. As you see in this question, Allan Kardec asks us to see the question 361. So the question 361 is under the title, The Moral and Intellectual Faculties of Humankind. We're going to talk a little bit more about moral and intellectual faculties. So that is the question 361. Where do a person's good or bad moral qualities come from? Because sometimes we see people and say, what does this come from? Why this person is like that? Okay. The spirits, the higher spirits answer the question. They reflect the qualities of the incarnate spirit. The purer the spirit, the more the person is inclined toward the good. And inside this question, Kardec also asked, so a moral person in the incarnation of a good spirit, and a depraved person, that of a bad spirit? They say yes, it will be better to say not bad or good and say an imperfect spirit. Otherwise, one might believe in spirit who will always remain bad, those you call demons, right? So first of all, the spirits correct the right word. We don't say bad spirits, we say imperfect spirits, because we all are. At some level, we are imperfect. Remember, perfection is only to God. All right, so continue. We have the question 846, is still about free will. Doesn't our organism, our body, have an influence on our actions in life? If so, isn't it at expense of our free will? That's a very, very interesting question. Let's see, the answer is very long, so I'm going to use more slides to answer this question. But let's take a look at this part first. The spirits says, spirits are certainly influenced by matter, which may be hinder its manifestations. That's why on worlds where bodies are less material than on Earth, the faculties unfold with more freedom. Okay, what we see here, he mentioned places other than Earth, more evolved planets, because the Spiritists brought us this hierarchy of planets. So we have more evolved planets. And the body is different, because the perispirit, it's more fluidic. So we see this, they can exercise more freely their faculties. So from this, we can have a conclusion that the body is kind of obstacle, right? And if the body is very heavy, like ours, right? We have a heavy material, very, very material. So they say the faculties unfold with more freedom those more evolved planets. Continue the answer. However, the instrument, our body, does not give faculties to the spirit. Furthermore, in this case, it is necessary to distinguish between moral faculties and intellectual faculties. You see the planet we live right now. we are very advanced in technology, but we are here, right, in technology and intelligence, and our moral is down here. So our job is to make this, our moral faculties, develop more, evolved more, and reach the same level. We are not there yet, but we are working on it. So we need to distinguish those two things, right? In continuation to the question, let's see the question again. If our organism have an influence on our actions of life, if this is going to be at the expense of our free will. So continue, it says, if individuals have an instinct for murder, it is assuredly their own spirit that possesses it and which transmit it to them. It never arises due to their bodily organs. So it's not in the brain, right? It's always the spirit that brought with them. It never arises due to their bodily organs. Those who suppress their thoughts in order to occupy themselves with matter become like an animal, and even worse, since they no longer think about being on guard against evil. It is in this that they become culpable because they act in this manner of their own free will. So you see, if a person is a murderer, it's not the body is going to determine that the person is a murderer, is the spirit, because we are a spirit and we occupy this body. We have always to remember that. Allan Kardec referred to the question 367, which says, upon joining the body, does a spirit identify itself with matter? So by the moment the spirit connect to a body, identify itself with matter, look at the spirit answer. Matter is no more than a spirit's envelope. This is a vessel. This body is a vessel, as clothing is the body's envelope. Upon joining the body, a spirit preserves the attributes of its spirit nature. Okay? So continue on our study about free will. We have the question 847. Can a distortion of the faculties deprive humans of their free will? Let's see. Those whose intelligence is impaired by any cause are no longer in complete control of their thought, and thereafter they have no more freedom. Such distortion is frequently a punishment for the spirit, who might have been vain and proud and might have made bad use of its faculties in another existence. You see, who may, we cannot generalize rules in spiritism, because sometimes we have a spirit that is born with mentally impaired, and also that is not related for any of those reasons we just said. Sometimes this we don't understand because we see with the eyes of the material world, but when we discarnate and we become only spirits, we understand, we see differently. We see that if I am born with such difficulty, I can move faster to be an evolved spirit. So let's not generalize, right? Because the spirit says, who may be, right? Now, it may be reborn in the body of someone who is mentally impaired, as the despot in the body of a slave, and this spiteful, wealthy person in that of a beggar. So the spirit, however, is perfectly conscious of such constraint as suffers from it. It is in this constraint that one sees the action of matter. So we needed to understand that it's not so, sometimes not so easy to understand the reasons, but some people, if they are born like that, we need to understand that spirit is very intelligent spirit and it's suffering. It is suffering because of the constraint, cannot use the brain like we use ours, for instance, right? He also, Allan Kardec refers to the question of the Spirit's book, the number 371. The question 371 is there any basis for the opinion that mentally impaired individuals have a soul of a little evolved nature? What do you think? Of course not. They don't say, of course. I said, of course. They say, no, they have a human soul that is frequently more intelligent than you might think, and it suffers from the insufficiency of its means to communicate, as a mute suffers from the inability to speak. Also, there are it's brought from the spiritism literature, a knowledge, we acknowledge that some spirits that they, for some reason, during incarnation existence, they they did so bad to a lot of people, like they were they were bad for like maybe this person was, I would say, a governor of a country, and he made a lot of people suffer. He's very intelligent. This is a very intelligent spirit. Doesn't mean that next existence is going to be born as a mentally impaired. What the divine justice does, sometimes these spirits, they are reborn in another less evolved planet. And if with their intelligence, they're going to make that planet evolve, they will they will suffer because they are very intelligent and they are born in a very less evolved planet they used to be. They have, remember, we carry the sensations, the fragmentary memories of previous existence. So there are other ways of the spirit can evolve, not only be born like that, right? All right. Continue about free will. We have the question 850. Kardec asked, isn't social position sometimes an obstacle to full freedom of action? See the question here? The world undoubtedly has its demands. God is just and takes everything into account, but holds you responsible for the paltry or lack of efforts you make to overcome such obstacles. Well, we need to remember that the goods on earth of earth belong to God. We are mere usufructuary of this. We're using something that is not ours. Everything is from God. So the administrator, more or less upright and intelligent of these goods. This, you can find more about this in the Gospel according to the Spiritism, chapter 16, item 10. If you are, this is another lecture. We can talk about the social position. Sometimes we have so many resources, and sometimes we have less resources. And what we do with resources counts. It doesn't matter which social position you are. Those, everything is taken into account, and the use we make of those is going to determine our the benefits we are getting from it. because the benefits always is spiritual, not matter, not money, not position, not title. It's better what we do, what the use we what we use, how we use those resources we have. Even if we have like we are very poor, we don't have resources, but you still have a freedom of action. Okay. All right, so that's where we're talking about free will. And we're going to talk about fatality because it's very, sometimes very common that we, we say, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. It's fatality. We cannot do anything about it. So let's see what the spirits tells us about the fatality. In the question 851, Kardec asked for the spirits, is there a fatalism in the events of life according to the usual meaning attached to the world? That is, are all events predetermined? If so, what becomes of free will? Well, see the very interesting question. I make it bold, two words, because they're very important. They say fatalism only exists, no exceptions, right? So fatalism only exists when applied to the choice made by spirits ample incarnating to undergo this or that trial. Remember we were talking about the babies, right? When we are born and we plan our incarnation before we incarnate in this existence. We planned in general terms. That's the only fatalism that Spiritism recognizes. We plan in general terms. So, ample choosing a particular trial, they delineate for themselves a kind of destiny, which is the proper consequence of the position in which they now find themselves, right? This question, the answer continue, but before we continue the answer of these questions, I want to say the incarnation, as I said, can be conceived by very spirit who desires reincarnate or by more enlightened spirits if we're unable to, especially assigned to the task. So in this first situation, the spirits choose the type of tests and why he or she must pass, and that is his free will. That's the free will there. So Allan Kardec, the Spirit's book in the question 258. In the other situation, God makes up for his inexperience, tracing path he must follow, as you do with the little child. However, little by little, as your free will develops, you must make the choice. So there is always a free will there. You can read the question 258 and 262 for that. Okay? Now, let's continue this. What is the fatality there, right? So the spirits continue explain to us. I'm referring only to trials of physical nature. As for moral trials and temptations, spirits preserve their free will to choose good or evil, and they're always able to yield or resist. So, think about it. Do spirits prefer certain people? We learn about this, the influence, right? So good spirits sympathizes with good men or those who are likely to improve themselves. Inferior spirits with mean vicious or that can become such. Hence, their affections like consequences of the conformity of feelings. That's the question 484. So we are spirits and we all the time, like we are here, you are watching, whatever you are connecting all the time with the spirit world. All the time we have been influenced by thought mainly. So if we keep our thoughts in a positive way, we're going to be close by spirits. They have the same type of thoughts. So we all have that linked to us from our birth, a good spirit. He took us under his protection, placed together with us the mission of a father towards his sons, like a father for us, to lead us through the path of good and progress, through the trials of life. Feel happy when we respond to your request, and also feel sad when we don't, because we have our free will, right? So he suffers when he sees us succumb, right? And we invoke it then as our guardian angels, our good genius, beyond the angel guard, who is our superior spirit. We have also spirits protectors, which, although lower, are no less good and magnanimous, right? So we are surrounded those good. We have those resources, guys. We need to use them. We count them among friends, relatives, or even among people we don't know in our current existence. They assist us with their device and not infrequently intervene in the acts of our life. So we are surrounding, because sometimes in spiritism, and when we study spiritism, even in lectures, they say, oh, this is spiritual world, this is material world. It's one word. We say material and spiritual just to explain things, like it's a way, pedagogical way, let's just say, to explain things. But we are immersed in this world, that's one world, where we find the spirits. They are incarnate, have bodies, or they are not incarnate. We are always in connection with them. Okay. So when good spirits sees individuals lose courage, they may today rush to their aid, but they cannot influence them to do the point of eclipsing their will. So our free will is preserved, right? They try to tell us, don't do this, it's not good for you, but we still have the last word. All right. Continue, a bad spirit, that is a low order one, can disturb and frighten them by exacerbating a physical danger. Whatever the circumstances, however, the incarnate spirit still retains the entire freedom of choice. So we need to stop saying, oh, I have this bad spirit to make me doing things. That is not true, because there is no victim. We can only blame ourselves. Just as illnesses result from physical imperfections that make the body accessible to pernicious outside influences, the obsessions always stem from moral imperfections, which gives ascendancy to an evil spirit. That means a spirit that is less evolved. So it is very important to us to keep our thoughts in good health, spiritual health. Okay, so we almost finish with the questions now. And we have this question 852. There are persons who seem to be pursued by a fatality, independent of their own action. Are not their misfortunes in such case the result of a predestination? Kardec insists, hey, it seems there are people, only bad things happen to them. Is this a predestination? Look, the Spirit says, there may be trials which they must endure and which they themselves have chosen. Once more, you blame fate, which is almost always a consequence of your own deeds. In the midst of the hardships afflicting you, make sure your conscience is clear. You will then feel partially consoled, right? It doesn't mean, guys, if you see someone going through a hard time, it doesn't mean you cannot extend a hand and help them out, right? It doesn't mean, oh, he chose that. He needs to suffer. No, we can always relieve the suffering of our neighbor, right? We can offer some help if it in our path, right? That means we have to help, right? Okay. There is a comment by Kardec in this question 852, which talks about fatality. He says, the right or wrong ideas that we form about things cause us to succeed or fail according to our character and our position. We find it easier and less humiliating to our vanity to attribute our failures to fate or destiny than rather to our own fault. Is that true? It is, right? If the influence of spirit sometimes contributes to this, we can always free ourselves from it by repealing the ideas they suggest when such ideas are wrongful. So we have very, right, this idea that spirit is brought to us that we can always resist. Our free will, it's always there. That's important to be able to have in mind and make the right choices. I believe I'm just going to give you the conclusions, but if you have time, I have a message from a book that I brought to you. Let's see if you have time for that. Let's just say you forgot everything I just said, right? Take this home. It's a takeaway. Conclusions. Every human being has the right to think. Thus, he also has free will. Without free will, humans would be machines. Without free will, humans cannot construct their destiny because we are the ones who choose our path. Freedom and responsibility come together and they are increased as the spirit evolves. So, as much knowledge we gather, we become more responsible. Because if we know that's wrong, why am I going to do that, right? If I have now the full knowledge of the law, why I'm going to act like that? So according to the Spirit's book, fatality is the one that Spirit chose before incarnating when we plan our incarnation. So free will plus responsibility, we have merit, right? So that's the study today about this topic. And I encourage you to read the questions 843 to 847, 850, 51, and 52. And if we have time, I'd like to read this final message is a prayer of Dr. Fieldship by the book Trilhas da Libertação. I'm not sure it has been translated by the medium Divaldo Franco, and the spirit is Manuel Filomeno de Miranda. Trilhas da Libertação means something like pathways to freedom, okay? It's very beautiful, so I invite you to meditate with me. Jesus, incomparable master, here we are, your imperfect disciples, for we only do and inordinately what was recommended to us. The aspiration to love and serve more and better remains in us. It helps us to achieve it despite our stubborn limits. We have often promised to renew ourselves to ascend, but despite, therefore, we were not willing to break the shackles that hold us in the puddles of the passions. Today, however, a different flame of enthusiasm and faith shines with us, pointing us to the liberating path. We wish to thank you, Lord, for the ceaseless help with which you honor us during these days of serious activity. We never lacked inspiration, support, and discernment to act with balance. If there were difficulties for those who begot them, we pray for mercy. Bless, Jesus, all those who shared our concerns and tasks, instilling in them superior spirit and disposition for good, especially in those who left the darkness and are willing to renew. Have mercy on them, the newly arrived brothers of ignorance. Mercy too for those others who linger in the madness of selfishness and presumption, forgetting you. Pray to our Father for them and for us, the children of Calvary, who still consider ourselves. Say goodbye to us in your peace and continue with us. For without you, it is impossible for us to proceed safely towards the heaven of peace. That's what we have today, and I'd like to wish much peace to all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much for this beautiful presentation and final message that you brought us, setting the tone perhaps for our final prayer, which maybe I can ask you to do
Sure,
for us.
of
Perfect.
course. So I'd like to invite you once again to raise our thoughts to God and to our Master and dear brother Jesus. Thank you for all the blessings we have today as we gather together in your name and learn a little bit more about divine justice and spiritism. Thank you so much for all this body of knowledge brought to us by Allan Kardec to illuminate our minds and help us to evolve even more. We also ask to God to bless those who are suffering right now due to this pandemic situation. We ask God to console their hearts and minds. And be sure this is all temporary. And we're facing a very hard time, but it's going to have an end. And we're going to keep our faith up and believe that we are not alone in this journey. Thank you so much, and so be it.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
As a reminder, we have all of our studies online. This Wednesday, we are going to have the study of Missionaries of the Light in English on Wednesday at 7:15 p.m. We always post it daily on our Facebook page and Instagram as well. Follow us, CLSG Spiritism is our page. CLSG Spiritism is the page. So we hope you follow. And also, we are almost there and finding a place for us to go back and start meeting, obviously following all of the procedures, the cautious procedures related to COVID. But hopefully next month, we're going to have an answer for you as we celebrate our 15th year anniversary. So we're very excited. Once again, Sandrinha, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye-bye.